All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of United Goalkeeping Alliance's The Goalkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Art, today with Coach Kevin Murphy. Coach Kevin, can you please tell us a little bit about where you are, what you do, and where you coach?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Art. I live about 30 minutes north of Boston. I coach for Merrimack College on the men's side. We're a Division I school. We play in the Northeast Conference. Right now, that takes up like a bulk of my coaching. Was doing some club work, but just couldn't make it all work, and really enjoy working at the college level. In addition to that, as you can see in my background, it's a gym teacher, so you can see all the equipment behind me. Um, so basically kicking balls at kids 24/7, I guess.
Nice. That's fantastic. And tell us a little bit about where you grew up, and how you got involved with playing the game. Just to start, how did you get involved with playing the
Yeah.
game?
So growing up, I I was actually really a bigger fan of hockey. I was sort of obsessed with playing street hockey, and the hope was that I was going to go into starting to play ice hockey. But I think family family learned pretty early that the cost of putting what would be two kids with my younger brother through hockey was just a little bit out of their realm of what they could afford. And watched a couple of my friends play indoor soccer, and I said, I really want to try that. And that sort of started a little bit of a bug in me in terms of just taking that kind of street hockey, ice hockey want to be in the goal, and then turning it over into soccer. And it took a while to kind of get the coordination going with more so like the foot skills and playing the field. But for some reason, just being in the goal and, kind of, I guess, being responsible for, that last line of attack always really spoke to me. So kind of grew up, all my friends were playing, and, at that time there really wasn't a ton of like high level clubs. It was really just you come up through your town program. So our town program was always very, very strong. And so you end up playing with your friends for, maybe 10, 12 years. And that went on to playing college, actually at Merrimack. And I don't know, just have never really stopped paying attention to the game or goalkeeping specifically.
Why goalkeeping? How'd you get into goalkeeping?
Well, I think I wasn't very fast. I wasn't the best technically with my feet, and at that time, you could kind of find a nice home in the goal, and it wasn't necessarily what it is now. Which, if I'm working with young ones, I'm gonna always be working with them to use their feet. But at that time, it was really just a lot of just shot stopping and bravery, and for me, that was always something that I love to do. If it wasn't goalkeeping, I'm sorry, it was a catcher in baseball or some other sport where someone's throwing a ball at you, or just things that 90% of the other friends you have don't have an interest in for some reason. I always enjoyed it. I like just being that person that could either save the day, win you a game, and just never really got out of the goal.
Now, how was that transition from player to coach? How did that happen for you? And um, again, going back to the whole piece of goalkeeping, right? Um, how much of that goalkeeping knowledge did you take with you to say, nah, I could be a goalkeeper coach, trainer, and keep working with goalkeepers?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've never really had a goalkeeper coach myself. So, there were periodically a guy would come maybe once a month, at maybe the high school level, and then Even at the college level, we just didn't have consistent goalkeeper coach. It would just be, you'd find out that day that they were coming, and there wasn't really much like fluidity in what you were doing. It was just a goalkeeper workout. So I think for me, it was always like, maybe it's just filling that void. Maybe just trying to provide something that, wasn't available to me. And so the transition, I think, was fairly easy because I really was sort of interested in figuring out the best way to train. I think early on, a lot of what I was doing beyond college, my college days, was really just replicating the curriculum and teaching style of Tony DeChico and Soccer Plus, which I was a counselor for a few summers. And was totally lost my first year there because, again, just wasn't really ever truly coached. So that I just, that curriculum, that sort of like, as a teacher now, I truly respect it, just the progression of what, you're learning. I took that on, and then, I think just as what I'm doing now is probably miles away from that. But it was really just a good foundation for me to know how to go about coaching goalkeepers, and, developmentally what, the steps are to get where you need to go.
Yeah, as a young keeper, I think not young keeper, as a young coach, I think it's super important to get those experiences and get the highest quality experience that you possibly can early on, because then you kind of sort of set the standard for your habits and how you build your sessions and what you're teaching and
Yep.
whatnot. So that, like, I know for me, when I, come across young coaches, like, a couple of them always ask me, like, what do you think about this, or what do you think about that? And the questions, the answer always comes back to, is this a place where you can grow and challenge yourself and not be the smartest person in the room?
Yeah.
Especially as a young coach.
Yeah.
But now, this month, you're going to be talking about, all right, so you're going to be actually discussing and talking about, like, positional excellence and the resulting set position. What does that mean, right? So are we talking about getting set, how we get set, after we get set, the angles, what does that mean, and how does it translate to a game?
Yeah, to me, I think it's like, if I was, roll back the clock, and, maybe I'm the age of the kids that we're talking to, at that point in sort of soccer's evolution, it would have been all Greek to me. I would have been like, oh, you just go save the ball, you fly around, dive, have to challenge the shooters, run at them, slide at their feet, whatever it takes. And I think, the older and wiser version of me has really started to embrace the math behind it, work smarter, not harder. And just once you start to kind of look at it, I guess, just like, like geometry, in the sense that, there's a ball, and, if you draw these imaginary lines from the ball to the middle of the goal, and we start to think about how far you're comfortable coming out, we start to have some consistent math to lean on. And then, if we layer in your technical ability and how far you can, make saves consistently and comfortably, like, we start to see that you're occupying a pretty big space, in theory, of a goal that was, once gigantic when you were standing, just on the goal line. So I think for me, and again, just maybe it's that sort of teaching aspect of it, is just trying to figure out how you take something that's pretty complex, and try to make it, approachable and easily digestible, I guess, for kids. So the goal for us, and myself and Greg Kenny, is really just to hopefully just lay the groundwork for the remaining two sessions, and just call it like a positioning 101, where it's just we try to make it very visual in terms of like, yes, you know it's a big goal, but here's how we can make it smaller just by where we stand. Um, and that it seemed to make sense to people when they hear it, but the execution is what is critical in remaining sort of focused, because as the ball moves, so should you. And as someone once said, I don't know where I picked this up, but it's like a dance. Ball moves back, you move forward. Ball comes back, ball comes towards you, you move back and over, and it's just like a waltz. And all that takes a lot of focus, and that's sort of the devil in the details of the position, and trying to instill in younger goalkeepers that if you pay attention to these things, you will set yourself up for success. And we all want to dive to the corners, but maybe we don't have to.
Right. So now speaking about like the math and stuff, I've seen players when they go to take a free kick, maybe a PK, count their steps backwards, count their steps to the side, and now
routines.
yeah, you're like putting the ball down, and now it's like 1, 2, 3 to the right, 3 to the left, whatever may have you. Can a goalkeeper do the same thing? Can they apply kind of the same thought process as far as, okay, here's the lines, and how can I use those lines to guide me to get set and to be set? It's in situations where you can get set. I mean, there's obviously rebounds and situations where you get caught off guard, but for the most part, how can we use those lines to guide us and help us figure out what our range is and how our set position is going to affect the outcome of a play?
Sure. Well, I think it's the first line that that I sort of reference a lot in what I do is just the ball line, that imaginary line from the ball to the middle of the goal. It's pretty much it's not debatable. It's a real it's a real line from one point to the other. Then when you add in that, what sometimes we call that goalkeeper arc, how far you're comfortable being away from the goal line, but also there's more curvature as the game kind of progresses. But I think just in terms of like what we can do as goalkeepers is if you're always on that ball line, I mean, I think you're off to a really, really good start. You could add in the fact that you could question maybe, is your depth away from the goal? What is that? But I think it's a really good place to start, because you would at least learn, okay, balls are going over my head. I'm not having much luck here, or I'm not able to get to the balls in the corner. Okay, and then we can work on that. And then maybe start to figure out what your comfort level is coming out of the goal. And the one thing I see a lot in college, even sometimes comes out of me, because I sort of still have that old instinctual where I want to come out and challenge someone. And at our level, I guess in college, you can't do that anymore. The ball is just going to zip right by you. So you find yourself having to create a new habit of pulling back setting, whatever you want to call it, to find more time. And that's something that can be very new to someone coming up, either from high school or club, where they've had maybe the finishing isn't what it is, so you can get away with that, and you can make more point blank saves closer to the ball. Can't really do that in college. They're just a bit more savvier. They'll pass it around you, and basically just you have that embarrassing walk over to watch the ball get put into an open goal. And you learn real fast. And I always try to tell our freshmen, this is going to take a year. And I'll give you my why, but you really won't know it until the ball is going by you and you go, oh man, I'm late on everything. And so that's where I'll still show them visually the same sort of look that I would give a 10-year-old, but at the same time, we'll just sort of say, now speed of the ball is a totally different variable. And your reaction time, yes, we can get a little faster, but we're not going to get that fast. So we have to find a way to buy a little time to make those saves.
Yeah, I mean the thing that I would say is also right. So, how adaptable do goalkeepers have to be? Because if I am a high school, if I'm a junior, senior in high school, and I'm having a very successful or a lot of relative success in goal, and I'm making those saves, and now I go to college, obviously the expectation is obviously the game's going to get a little bit faster, a little bit stronger. But how adaptable do players have to be able to now develop those new habits and then also readjust, readjust the angles, readjust the steps? Because yeah, you are going to be adapting to the power, the pace, the savviness, right? There's a lot of players. If you're facing one really smart player in high school, you're probably playing 4 or 5 at least in college, if not all
Yeah.
11, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
how adaptable do players have to be? And is that usually a challenge, or are usually players normally prepare pretty well for that?
Uh, you know what? I can't say like with certainty, like, you know, the hope for, I guess, where I feel like my job is that, in that recruiting process is to be super transparent with maybe it's an incoming freshman that is sort of your classic high school slash high level club. I would still be very transparent and say the likelihood of you, um, you know, in year one, being able to adapt to the point where you are contributing on the field, um, in my opinion, is very, very low. So I really try to tell them to either embrace that you've got a year to figure it out, in a good way, like, the way that the NFL used to really kind of bring a quarterback along, with a year to learn. And if that's something that's really not in their interest, then probably need to find, um, either another school, but also just maybe, another school a little bit down the ladder, where you can be a more immediate impact, which is totally fine. But for what we're doing, I would just be very upfront and say, in that early process, this will take a year. From what I've noticed, take take it with a grain of salt. It is what, this is my opinion. They they asked me to have that opinion, and if you're not adaptable and you're not, if you're not willing to learn or interested in learning, I don't think you'd be a good fit for me anyway, because we really want our guys to be constantly like curious and not saying that they have all the answers, because it's not black and white. It's a totally gray, variable game, and we want them to be, not not I guess ignorant enough to think that they have all the answers, because I don't think it will go well for you if you're if you're disinterested in it, and just accepting that we all need to adapt.
Yeah, and again, right? There's levels to everything. There's levels to everything, and and that's why it's so important that as a player you find the right fit. And soccer might be fun for you, and you might want to go play, and you don't want to sit, and I'm sure you can find that environment, and
Oh,
you
sure.
might, and you might, want a more serious environment where you're being challenged, developed, and all that stuff, and that might be an environment that suits you. So as long as you have that clarity of what it is that you want, and you realize what it is that is going to entail, right? Because I could be the player that wants to just go in and play, and then you also have to live with the consequences of the wins or the losses, and that's okay. But anyways, it's totally fine. Now, United Goalkeeping Lines. Why did you join? How did you hear about us? What was the draw for you?
Well, I think I think what we're doing, with these sessions and webinars, and it was something that I had already sort of embraced, I guess, back to days in, as a goalkeeping director for a club. Just love the idea of classroom sessions and making things visual. I know me personally as a learner, um, words just sort of, I start to sort of check out. But if I can show a picture of something, it seemed to click. And, I think it's pretty obvious that we don't get enough time with goalkeepers on the field as it is. In order to teach some of these sort of tactical concepts and if it's psychosocial stuff, we just don't have time to touch on those things. So I was already a big proponent of this style of learning, and maybe growing up, I would have just sort of seeked this stuff out on my own. And so I guess for me, it's like I love just I love working with my peers to develop these presentations, but also just the feedback you get when you're on these meetings, and the kids are engaged, and they're very kind of interested in trying to figure out who they are as a goalkeeper. And like, this is all stuff that like just didn't exist or I didn't have access to when I was younger. So I applaud these kids for taking time out of their day to be there. And I think my job, and I don't want to speak for anyone else in UGKA, is just, I got to make this interesting for you. I have to make this engaging and not death by PowerPoint. So my hope is when they tune in that they pick up something, out of that presentation, and, that we've set the table for the rest of the month with the other positioning conversations, because that's really where the kind of the gray area or the technical styles are going to come into play, and strategies. And for our presentation, we just got to make sure that you're ready for that.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you go here in a minute. Quick question, as I am about to make a save, and it's a 1v1. Am I gunslinger or my hands up? Which one is it?
Well, yeah. So this is like the evolution of me as a goalkeeper growing up. Was always, my hands were, I would get as low as I possibly could with my hands down. But now my teaching style is like, I kind of embrace that more futsal style of dropping a knee and staying up and waiting out a guy. Now, if I play like over 40s, the old me still comes out, but it's like, do as I say, not as I do sometimes. But I think you have to at least get low. And that's like growing up playing indoor soccer. The only way you have a chance to react is to stay low. But if a guy is high and he can somehow make those saves, maybe with his feet, whatever saves the ball. But to me, it's like, I feel like the knee's got to bend in some way.
No, I agree. That's a great answer. And the answer is always, it depends, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the beauty of being the goalkeeper coach. We long pause and say, I don't know.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kevin, for
thank you, Art. Thanks
here.
for having me.
If anybody wants to get a hold of you, do you have a social media that we can go to?
I think probably Twitter is the best. Geez, I don't even know if I know my own handle. Or actually Instagram, probably the best, at WMA Soccer. That's a kind of a brand that myself and the other assistant coaches at Merrimack College have started, and we do some ID clinics and kind of do any small group training under that umbrella.
Awesome. Very, very, very cool. Thank you again, Kevin, for hopping on. And we wish you good luck this off season and as you build into next season. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
Thanks. See you, Art.
See ya.